Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has dissolved his country's war cabinet, which helped set Israel's war policy against Hamas. The move comes after one of Netanyahu's main rivals, former General Benny Gantz, resigned over the lack of a plan to govern Gaza after the war. For more on this, let's bring in Jon Alterman. He's the Senior Vice President and Director of the Middle East Program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Jon, it's good to be with you again. Let's start with the dissolution of the War Cabinet. What was the purpose of the War Cabinet, and how much is the fact that it no longer exists? How much of a blow is that to Netanyahu and to the current state of things?
It's not a blow to Netanyahu. It gives Netanyahu control, but in some ways it also opens Netanyahu up to pleading from people he doesn't really want to listen to on the right of Israeli politics, that he has to listen to them more. He could say, look, I have a war cabinet. It's full of former war heroes. I have to get their military advice. So the security cabinet, which, believe it or not, has more than 20 members in it, was sidelined, and he worked with somewhat more like-minded, more centrist people to determine where the war was going. That was one of the things Benny Gantz said: if I'm going to join your government, I want a voice. I want the military people and not the political hangers-on to be making decisions. With him out, Netanyahu, in many ways, has control himself over what the cabinet does, but it also means that these right-wingers who he'd like to keep in the government but marginalize will be making more claims that they say we have to be in on the decisions that affect Israeli security.
Does that then, Jon, change the way the United States would look at Netanyahu's decisions, the way globally Netanyahu would be framed as he continues to have to make decisions here at this stage in the conflict? And will that potentially hurt his international posture if he's seen as just basically answering to his most extreme right wing?
The reality is that the people who left the cabinet and his defense minister have better ties with the international community, better ties with international military folks, better ties with the U.S. military than Netanyahu himself does. And I think keeping the people who say we have to think about how this war ends, we have to think ahead, those people get more and more marginalized, and voices like Minister Smotrich, the finance minister, who talks about resettling Gaza with Jews, are going to be more central to the Israeli government conversation. And to me, that's going to create a problem for Netanyahu, because you can't talk about this form of people that people say, well, I don't totally agree with Netanyahu, but at least we're talking to people in the war cabinet. Now they'll be talking to Netanyahu, and they'll say, but Netanyahu is talking to these guys, and what they want to do is madness.
So in that context, as the last question, Amos Hochstein is in the region trying to work on this work on this ceasefire deal. It's been 3 weeks since President Biden put it forward. How do you assess the state of things with that grinding negotiation over whether there's going to be any kind of an agreement to cease hostilities?
Frankly, it feels to me like both on the Israeli side and on the Hamas side, leaders say, the killing is hard, but the killing is a necessary sacrifice. There hasn't been enough of it because the other side has to move more than it's moved so far. I'm afraid that I look at this and I see the world saying this has to stop, and the combatants saying this has to go on longer because we haven't won yet. We're going to win. We haven't won yet. We just have to keep at this.